Initially, it came as a kind of grungy, it was very. Hi, I'm Crispin Hunt. I'm the lead singer. I was the lead singer of a band called Long Pigs, and I wrote a song called She Said, which had some quite success, and this is the story of that. 30 years is a terrifyingly long time, but it's incredibly rewarding and fulfilling that that people are still listening to it. That is, feels like a wonderful thing. It was a dream of mine. When I was a kid, and people were saying, "Oh my God, people are still listening to the Beatles and the Stones 20 years after they've 30 years after they'd been around," and that seemed amazing, because up until then pop music had been completely reusable and disposable. It's a real honour and a real joy that people are still listening to it. Not many of them, but they are still listening to it, so that's great. Yeah. It got released twice, because it got released very early on and didn't really bother anything. Got us as a band a bit of notice, and then our record company decided to re-release it. And the second time it got released, it was desperately exciting. I mean, the radio picked up on it. Chris Evans, who was a massive DJ at the time, sort of in his morning drive time show, sort of had it as his big song, and he was getting everyone to kind of scream along with the embarrassing screaming bit in the middle. And the most rewarding thing about it as a song, and I think for all musicians, is it's really about communication and communion. It's an extraordinary feeling when something that you've created, or something that you're trying to communicate or trying to feel or think about or express, resonates with lots of people, and going into shops and seeing people humming along with something that you've written. That's what is the real joy. I remember Long Pigs toured with U2, and I was pretty stunned, and we were playing Giant Stadium, and U2 as a band, I hadn't really got them before, and then they suddenly played, and seeing them in a stadium, you understand what it's about. They were really we are just the catalyst we're the excuse for 90,000 people to join together and sing One Love. So I think that's where music is at its best, and that was always the real thrill for me. Having said that, of course, it's amazing to hear your song on the radio and get on TV. Being on TV is always brilliant fun, because you walk out of the studio and many more people know you than before. It has a funny birth, Long Pigs. I'd gone to university in Sheffield, and I'd gone to university in Sheffield because I'd failed to get into Cambridge because I'm not clever enough, and then my second choice of university I didn't want to go to. I wanted to do music, and my friend from my school band lived in Sheffield, so I got into Sheffield via clearing, and I'd been in various bands and got to know the kind of local music scene. The band that I'd been in before had split up, and I'd also split up with the first love of my life, and so I took myself off to write some songs, and a number of these things kind of came out then. And it was a time of, when you're young and that age, you should be exploring and asking yourself all sorts of questions. And I made a demo tape on my own with the drummer from the Long Pigs, who was called Dee, who is sadly passed away a few years ago. And Dee was a kind of hero of mine. He was he'd played in Chac and in Cabaret Voltaire, and he was sort of 8 years older than me and seemed like, and he'd been on Top of the Pops with Yaz and things like that. So he was a sort of hero, and he said he'd come down and play on these demos that I was writing in my friend's studio. The Long Pigs didn't really exist. Long Pigs was just a kind of fabrication, if I admit it. I'd made these demos of 3 or 4 songs, and I lied my way into the record companies by phoning up one record, getting the name of one A&R man and saying, I'm coming down to see another A&R man. I've got half an hour that I can pop in and see you. And he went, oh yeah, if you're going to go and see them, come and see me. And then I phoned up the original one and said, I'm coming down to see so-and-so. I've got half an hour I could fit you in. And luckily, actually, Mike Smith, who then went on to become very significant in the music industry, was a young A&R man, and he really loved it. He really loved this demo, and I came in to see him, and he said, when can we see the band? And I was lying. I was saying, oh yeah, we're a band, we're fully formed, we're going to be playing in a couple of weeks. And it was really just me and Dee that had done the stuff. And they said, oh great, when's your first gig? And I said, oh, I'll send you the date. It's in 3 weeks' time. And I had to run back up to Sheffield and form the rest of the band and rehearse very, very quickly for our first gig in kind of 3 weeks. And actually that went really well. It was all really quick, and we got signed. We got some bigwig managers and signed to Elektra Records, who just reopened in the UK, and everything was going great. And we made an album with Gil Norton, who had done the Pixies and Echo and the Bunnymen, and I was in awe. And then, sadly, 3 weeks before we were going to release our first single, which would have been 2 weeks after Oasis and before Radiohead, etc., Elektra, for some kind of corporate global reason, folded in the UK, and they put a kind of price tag on Long Pig's head, saying you need to get yourself bought out of this record contract. So that was really annoying, and but luckily, it took us 2 years to get signed again, which was very frustrating because it meant that we were on the tail end of Britpop rather than the vanguard. We should have been, had everything gone fine, we would have been really early on, which would have been cool, but it doesn't really matter. I was struggling, as everyone should do, and trying to work out what my identity was. I was trying to feel comfortable in my gender. I was trying to feel comfortable in my sexuality. I was trying to feel comfortable in all the things that she said is talking about. There's no clothes I can buy make me feel like myself, she says. And also I was a puntsy politics and philosophy student, so I was trying to have a kind of, I was doing a kind of discourse with myself between my feminine side and my masculine side. But I think kind of initially it came as a kind of grungy, it was very... It's playing, it's a blues, it's fundamentally a blues thing, and then trying to kind of subvert the blues thing by adding a lot of those interesting changes that Nirvana were bringing in, where they were singing kind of what should have been Beatles songs, but using the wrong chords underneath it to create some kind of dissonance. And that at the time felt extremely exciting, but I think it was me in my bedroom struggling to articulate my all of the confusion that was going on in my head about what you're going to be and where you're going to go and why you are expected to be a certain way and why you still can't express yourself as the thing you are rather than the thing you ought to be. For me, that's the most interesting thing about this song. everything was done live. We weren't using any click tracks. We weren't, and it has a kind of human quality to it. And at the time, I was thinking, oh no, everybody, everything else, this is all a bit out of time. It's speeding up and it's slowing down, and we're not using all of the tricks that other people seem to be using, like recording the electric guitars 50 times to make it sound like one great big Metallica-style guitar. And I was worried about that. I thought it doesn't sound like everybody else's. But I wonder whether actually, because it has kind of, it's a band in a room, and the whole of that first record was very much a band in a room. And I wonder whether that's why it's had the longevity it's had, and in the way that it connects in a very human way, because it was totally human, and that gives me hope when it comes to AI, because AI will never be able to make records like She Said. It'll never be able to do it. It'll make records like a lot of other records I've made, but not necessarily like She Said. I'm extremely proud and extremely thrilled that occasionally now there are new young bands who are, citing Long Pigs as an influence, or you can hear a bit of that, or the press is going, oh, this is a little bit Long Pigsy. So maybe, I take great solace in the fact that maybe we've become the kind of the television for the next generation, and yeah, 10 million streams isn't a lot, but about 5 million of those have been in the last couple of years. So that is exciting. There are people kind of discovering it, and it gives me in my own life great hope with humanity that I've done something that is still resonating with the next generation, despite the fact that it's not really very heavily promoted. I'm really enjoying the Britpop revival at the moment, and it's amazing that Oasis are doing what they're doing, and I take my hat off to them, and other bands, and Pulp, and there are many of my colleagues that are getting together and still doing amazing shows. Britpop was a funny sensation. It was a really exciting time, and Blair, the change of government was coming in. There was a real sense of optimism, and I suppose it was just pre the millennium as well. It was wonderful and really exciting, and a privilege to have been around in that time. And Britpop was really Britain's attempt to do grunge. And that's what She Said now, in retrospect, in hindsight, sounds like to me. But obviously at the time it wasn't as academic as that. It was just what we were feeling and what we wanted to express, and what we, how we wanted to resonate. That first time where you first get paid for writing your songs, and in those days, as a kind of, I didn't have a family, or I was living in a shared flat. It was quite a lot of money in those days. I felt like I was quite wealthy. And the royalties came in. I remember Christmas going, I remember telling my granny, I've just made £4,000 from PRS. And now it doesn't seem like very much money, but in 1996, I remember thinking, it's all right, Gran, I'll take you to lunch. It was amazing, and actually PRS is that, consistently, I've made money elsewhere, but PRS has kept me alive completely. PRS is a godsend there, which is why I'm so passionate about getting involved with it now, because the music industry is a funny beast, but the one consistent place that has paid me regularly, that I've spent a lifetime living for, has been PRS. So I can't tell you how grateful I am to PRS, and I'm very grateful to have an opportunity to kind of give back to that now. So.